about the outlook ahead for this year. It seems like we've had a tremendous rally the first quarter, and we're basically back at levels that we saw last time in July. We all know what happened in August. Where do you think we're going to go from here? Are we going to be basically treading water going forward, or is there going to be a correction? What's your view on the overall market and its direction?
We have had, as you said, just a tremendous rally in the first quarter. It's the kind of thing that a lot of analysts were expecting, but it took a lot of them by surprise in terms of timing as well as the speed. So probably we will be treading water from between now and the beginning of the summer, then we'll reassess. We're discounting a tremendous revival in the economies and the end of the problems in Europe. We probably are some way towards reaching those objectives, yet, as you said, the markets are ahead of themselves, so probably we do need to sit still and reassess for another month or two.
Do you see any potential, what are potential sources of risk that could kind of trigger some type of correction, at least on the emerging market side? These are the things that we've been hearing about, the potential situation in Iran, another European surprise. What are the things you guys are looking at as a potential signal?
It's the same types of risks that we've seen in the past. We don't know if European deleveraging is happening too quickly or not quickly enough. We have some calm on the political side in Greece for the time being. That could erupt. Portugal could erupt. And aside from the Middle East, we have tremendous sources of political risk elsewhere in the world. We have elections coming up in October in Venezuela and as well in Ukraine, and we don't know how those will turn out.
Mexico as well, too, right?
That's correct. Although, fortunately, we don't worry about Mexico as much as we used to 18 or so years ago.
Okay. You mentioned the deleveraging drive. That seems to be more of an issue here in Europe and then in LATAM. Banks basically lining up their balance sheets and not rolling over or extending credit to corporates. What we heard today was that there was going to be some, origination activity coming from that, either origination activity in the local markets in a cross-border high-yield market, or for the potential restructurings. What's your view on that as an opportunity for folks looking for a way in on the high yield side?
It's possible. It would be nice to see it happen, but we have only really seen it in large sizes. In the case of companies such as Polkomtel, when bridge loans had to be rolled into bond issues, they're not quite there yet, but they're about half done. But aside from that, we don't see that, because banks are having so many difficulties right now from the economic side, from the leverage side, liquidity side, the regulatory side. They really don't want to write down assets if they don't need to, and we think regulators probably don't want to force them to either. So they will probably do, as we like to say these days, extend and pretend, rather than write the assets down and sell them, or alternatively force the client to the bond market. So we would like to see more issuance in the high yield market, but probably that's next year's hot idea.
And we talked about as well Africa, which is, as I mentioned earlier, is a source of something you've covered quite closely as another potential source of origination and of interest on the part of investors. Where do you see potential activity there, either on the corporate side? Is there anything beyond South Africa that's worth looking at? Is it strictly, basically issues from new issues from banks? I mean, do you see it? What's the trend there over the next 6 to 9 months?
Well, speaking of sovereign risk and political risk, we have elections coming up in Senegal this weekend. Those probably will not be a source of outsized risk, as we've seen, unfortunately, in Africa in the past, so that could be a buying opportunity on the secondary market side. From the primary side, it's still probably going to be the sovereigns for a while. We're expecting an issue from Zambia in the not-too-distant future. We're hoping to get one from Kenya. It didn't quite happen. They opted for World Bank financing and syndicated loans, but I think for the next several months probably it will be a sovereign story, and then once those are completed, then we would maybe see banks and then some corporates. But even though the activity is largely in South Africa, there has been quite a lot in the past couple of years from some of the big utility companies, as well as Transnet, a big infrastructure company in South Africa. But also on the secondary side, AfriSam has been very interesting to many investors, as has Edcon, the big department store chain.